Greetings, Dr. Freed, and welcome. We're so happy that you have time to talk with us a little bit about global citizenship.
I don't know how many non-US interviewees you will have, but let me sort of take this from a non-US perspective initially. I have a hard time with the term leadership per se, maybe because when I sort of in my mind translate it in my own sort of native tongue in German, it sounds a little bit sort of like a taboo word. You know, Führerschaft is certainly something that is out of our vocabulary as a post-World War II generation person. Working so long with colleagues from the United States, I'm realizing the value of the word and the currency it has in the United States. And more also in circles which emulate models in the United States and bring it sort of to other countries as well. A little bit provocatively maybe, sort of in my mind, sort of it's something like a secular religion in the United States almost. And people believe in this term and terminology and the language of leadership and buy into it very, very easily. It seems to be naturalized almost in the discourse. For me it is not, I think, sort of. In the context in which it is being used, mainly in the corporate world, I'm more of a skeptic of this language. You know, you go to any airport bookshop and find all these kind of very, very shallow sort of tractates on leadership, which I find almost sort of coming from the academic world, sort of is ignoring deliberately almost sort of what we have developed in the area of organizational theory, organizational psychology, which is not all about someone is leading and the rest sort of is just following, which sort of seems to be a little bit almost self-gratifying when people read sort of books about leadership. They see themselves sort of impersonated in it and sort of so that's the element where I'm a step back from a little bit and look at it sort of more from a distance. I do think, however, that the question sort of leadership is an important one, very, very much so. It's just sort of where do we come from and where do we go from it? Sort of, I think leadership, first of all, is a question sort of what entitles me, what authorizes me to have a voice and to speak on behalf of others. I think this is a very difficult proposition. Why do I think I have the agency of a leader? What entitles me for it? And I come back sort of that this is each and every time something which has to do with positioning yourself and finding the context for yourself. Context-free leadership is for me almost an invitation for very hierarchical and very autocratic sort of thinking. If you talk about leadership and talk about community at the same time, it changes completely the semantic value for me. So that's one thing. The other, how do you combine it with ethics and ethical sort of considerations? I think sort of you qualify it then. Leadership is not a per se like an organizational mantra. You say, well, the values which are connected with leadership qualify what leadership is. And let me sort of come back to a very, very popular comparison, team player. And what is the ethics of the quarterback, the captain of a team? It's certainly not sort of to be the one who scores all the goals and all this. It's an enabling role. So the underlying values of what leadership is makes all the difference. I have, again, sort of would invite everyone sort of to reflect on what is ethics in the 21st century. Again, this is not an answer where you just go to the textbooks, and I think sort of it's a radical question. I think it's potentially a subversive question, ethics of the 21st century, and it requires, first of all, a very humbling, almost sort of experience of putting yourself in the context of the ethics of a globalizing world and seeing yourself through the eyes of others as being a beneficiary, a sort of person who may lack ethics when you look at this person from the outside, although internally you think you are representing the right values. So being multi-perspective in ethics is truly important. So that's the first approximation to your question, I guess.